Hassan and Zayd were hiding in a forgotten fortress, far from the reach of the palace soldiers. Hassan, the young beggar who had claimed royal blood, was now determined to take back what was rightfully his. His heart ached with the weight of his past, but he knew there was no turning back. He had to gather enough support to challenge the corrupt rulers who had stolen his throne. They spent their days gathering followers and preparing for the war that would reclaim Hassan's birthright. Word had spread that the lost prince was alive, and many believed in him. Zayd, his closest ally, stood by him, ever the loyal companion. But as they planned, Hassan couldn't shake off the feeling that something was amiss. He trusted everyone around him, but he couldn't ignore the uneasy silence that hovered over the camp. In the hidden fortress, Hassan and Zayd began to make their plans. They knew that the future of Al-Mara depended on uniting the surrounding villages. It wouldn't be easy. Many of the villagers had already suffered under the rule of the palace, and they were wary of trusting anyone. But Hassan's bloodline was the key. He was the last hope for the kingdom. "We must reach out to the villages near the mountains," Hassan said, pointing to a map. "They have always been loyal to my father. If we can win them over, we will have enough strength to push the soldiers out." Zayd agreed, and they sent messengers one by one to each village. They promised food, safety, and a future with Hassan as their king. But the journey was dangerous, and there were many spies in the land. The palace was already hunting down anyone who dared to defy them. While the messengers were on their way, a shadow fell over the camp. Hassan trusted everyone around him, but not all were as loyal as they seemed. One night, while Hassan and Zayd slept, a trusted rebel named Sami snuck away from the camp. Sami had been secretly working with the palace, betraying their cause for wealth and power. Sami made his way to the palace and revealed everything he knew. He told the palace guards about the rebel camp, about the reinforcements, and most dangerously about the support from the nearby villages. When Hassan learned of the betrayal, his heart shattered. The one person he thought he could trust had turned on him. His first thought was of Zayd, who had been by his side through it all. "How could he do this?" Hassan asked, looking at the empty space where Sami had once stood. "How could he betray us?" Zayd placed a hand on his shoulder. "We must keep moving forward. The people still believe in you, Hassan. We cannot lose hope." The betrayal of Sami meant the palace soldiers were now on their way to the hidden fortress. Hassan and Zayd quickly made plans to escape. They couldn't stay and fight the soldiers in such a small, isolated place. With the help of their loyal followers, they managed to sneak out of the fortress just before the palace soldiers arrived. They traveled through the night, making their way toward the mountains where they would meet the reinforcements. Along the way, Hassan's heart was heavy with doubt. The betrayal had shaken him deeply, and he wondered if he was truly fit to lead. But Zayd's words gave him strength. "You are not alone, Hassan. The people are waiting for you." After days of traveling, Hassan and Zayd finally reached the mountain village where they had hoped to find support. The villagers were cautious at first, but when Hassan revealed who he was, their expressions changed. "The lost prince," an elder whispered. "We have heard your songs. We have waited for your return." The villagers agreed to help, providing food, shelter, and fighters for the coming battle. With the mountains as their stronghold, Hassan and his followers were ready to face the palace soldiers once again. But there was a growing tension in the air. The people were ready to fight, but Hassan knew that the road ahead would be full of hardship. The soldiers were not far behind, and time was running out. As the final battle approached, Hassan stood at the top of a cliff, looking out over the land of Al-Mahra. It was the kingdom he had once known, the kingdom he had lost. And now it was within his reach once again. He turned to Zayd, who stood beside him. "The people are ready. They trust me. But I fear this battle will cost us everything." Zayd nodded. "But if we don't fight, we lose everything anyway. You were born to lead. You are the king of Al-Mahra." Hassan took a deep breath, gathering his courage. The final battle was not just about reclaiming a throne, it was about restoring hope to the people who had suffered for so long. The night before the battle, Hassan sat alone by a fire, his mind full of doubts and questions. He had dreamed of this moment for so long, but now that it was here, he wasn't sure if he was ready. Zayd found him sitting in the darkness, lost in thought. "You've come so far," Zayd said quietly. "You've won the hearts of the people. Tomorrow we fight for them." Hassan looked up at the stars. "I've always wondered if I was meant for this, but now I see. I have no choice. The kingdom is in my blood." Zayd smiled and placed a hand on his shoulder. "Tomorrow, you'll remember who you are." At dawn, the battle began. The sound of drums echoed through the mountains as the rebels and the palace soldiers faced each other. The earth trembled beneath the weight of their march, and the skies seemed to darken with the weight of what was to come. Hassan stood at the front of his army, his heart pounding in his chest. He had come so far, but now it was time to fight for everything he had lost. His people, his kingdom, his family, all of it depended on this moment. The battle was fierce. Arrows flew through the air, swords clashed, and the cries of warriors filled the battlefield. Hassan fought with all his might, leading his people with the courage and strength of a king. As the battle raged on, Hassan came face to face with the leader of the palace soldiers, a ruthless man named Omar. Omar had been one of the traitors who had helped overthrow King Salim, and he had ruled Al-Mahra with an iron fist ever since. The two men fought fiercely, their swords clashing in the heat of battle. Hassan's heart was filled with rage and determination. He couldn't let this man destroy everything his family had built. Finally, with a powerful strike, Hassan disarmed Omar and sent him to the ground. The battle was won. With Omar defeated and the palace soldiers scattered, Hassan stood victorious. The people of Al-Mahra had reclaimed their kingdom, and the land seemed to sigh with relief. Hassan looked at the people who had gathered to cheer for him. He had not only reclaimed his throne, he had given them hope. "I am your king," Hassan said, his voice strong, "and together we will rebuild our kingdom." The people cheered, their voices rising like a wave. Hassan had returned, and with him, the promise of a new beginning. The song of the beggar king had come to an end, but a new chapter had just begun for Al-Mahra, and under Hassan's rule, the kingdom would flourish once again. Hassan's reign brought peace and prosperity to Al-Mahra. The kingdom, once ravaged by fear and injustice, flourished under his leadership. The people who had stood by him when he was just a beggar now celebrated his reign, rebuilding their homes, harvesting crops, and traveling safely through the land. Hassan never forgot his roots. He ensured no one ever had to suffer as he had, making sure the voices of all people were heard. His loyal friend Zayd was with him every step of the way, helping him build a fair and just kingdom. One day, Hassan saw a beggar in the streets, just like he had been. The beggar looked up and recognized him. "Your Majesty," he said, bowing his head. Hassan smiled, offering him a coin, but this time it was more than just a coin. It was a symbol of how far he had come, a king who had risen from nothing to restore hope and justice. With the kingdom restored and his people thriving, Hassan knew his journey had been worth it. He had turned his destiny around, and in doing so, had brought peace to Al-Mahra. The end.